Raymond and Dolores Manger de Mario graduated from the Maryland State Teachers College at Towson in 1960. Ray received his bachelor's degree in secondary education, social sciences, and Dolores received her bachelor's degree in elementary education. They both taught in public education for over 30 years, most of it in Baltimore County, Maryland. These are their reflections.
Mr. and Mrs. DeMario, it is so nice of you to come and share with us your memories and reflections on your teacher preparation here at Towson and your subsequent careers in education. This will add a great deal to what we're trying to create, which is a history of the evolution of teacher education over time. And I guess the first place to start is in the beginning, and so if you each could tell me a little bit about your early social context, where you grew up, what you were thinking about in terms of possible careers or ambitions after high school, when you first thought about becoming a teacher, too, and why you chose Towson. So.
You want to start?
Sure, I'll start. As a young child, and an only child, I always enjoyed playing and working with children, and I was forever getting children games and organizing bicycle rides, skating parties, and things in the street, and so on and so forth as a young child. As I grew older and into high school, where they were kind of guiding us into our future, I sort of lost that childhood, young childhood activities, except for babysitting at that point, and was very much interested into the mechanics of the telephone and the company and what I could do. It intrigued me because I could put a phone together since my father was a telephone worker. Thought I'd like to follow in his footsteps. But learning early that no, I was not really equipped for that. I should become a teacher from the testing done at my high school, the Institute of Notre Dame, where I would be. They tested and deemed me in this area would be very good. So that's how I became a teacher. And I also had a second cousin who constantly gave me little books and encouraged me into this career. So that's how I started at Towson.
Okay.
I didn't want to be a teacher. When I was in high school, I wanted to be a pharmacist, and then I took chemistry, and I decided I didn't want to be a pharmacist because I was not a genius in chemistry. At the time, Towson, if you got into Towson, it was kind of free. There was not a tuition to pay. So that was an incentive. And my sister was a teacher. She had graduated from Towson. So I said, well, in lieu of anything else,
yes,
and since it's free, I'll go to Towson. And then when I first entered Towson, I joined the Marine Corps. In fact, I joined the Marine Corps right after I graduated from high school. So I really expected to graduate from Towson and join the Marines. And but as I got there and as I got exposed to education, I got pretty interested in it, and I really, really liked it. And so when I graduated and I finished my Marine Corps commitment, I went into teaching.
There you go.
So.
Now, were you both in Baltimore? You were both in the Baltimore area?
He was in the eastern end, I was in the western end, and he also played in the drum corps for many years and was musically inclined, so he was dressed up in his uniform.
I was used to being in uniform.
There you go.
Right.
So when you came to Towson, did you live at home? Did you live on campus?
Well, the first year I lived at home and commuted with a neighbor friend. And My mother passed away when I was 16,
Mm.
and so it was just my father and I.
Mhm.
And from then on, from the sophomore year on, I dormed
Mhm.
and had a wonderful time. Really enjoyed that. I did cause sensations, though, in Towson when I did the laundry, because I would bring my father's shirts home with to Towson
Oh.
and wash them and iron them and take them back home. I didn't have time to do that on the weekend with dating and all, and he did need clean shirts.
So I'm sure people were a little puzzled by the fact that you were doing men's shirts.
Yes,
In the
it caused
dorm.
quite, yes.
I didn't know that story.
Yes, Mom
Remember
Tillman, my dorm mother, was aghast at that the first time, and I explained that she met my father, and she said that's the first time she had ever seen men's shirts in a women's dorm.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And Ray, what about you? Did you live on campus?
No, I
as
was
well?
I was a commuter, and I had to work, so I spent my time commuting back and forth and working in a drugstore,
Uh-huh.
which convinced me also that I didn't want to be a pharmacist.
There you go.
Because I didn't enjoy the counting pills and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So,
And when did the two of you meet?
Oh, we met the freshman year,
Ah.
and he was a pest, and I was dating somebody else at the time, and till the, I guess, sophomore year, I broke up with a gentleman I was going out with, and he wouldn't let anybody else on campus date me because he intended to date me, and I don't recall exactly. Oh, I do. I do.
Well-
The
Well-
first date we had, he didn't show up.
that's a lie. But anyhow, I had a good friend on campus. Showed you the picture earlier, Elliot Marenblum,
Uh-huh.
and he was a dorm student.
Uh-huh.
Incidentally, his roommate was Spiro Malice, who became a Metropolitan Opera star.
Really?
Yeah, I
Yes.
think he was probably the big guy in our class as far as.
Uh-huh.
But anyhow, and I just said to Elliot, I said, look, just keep an eye on whoever Dolores is going out with, and let me know who they are, and then I would talk to those folks.
I
And say,
see.
you really don't want to get out with Dolores Manger anymore, and I was successful. So she didn't get many dates.
Well, I wanted to go to the crab feast, and I didn't want to go alone, so I did consent to go with him, and one thing led to another, and you know how that is.
What do you recall about your education courses here? Do you have a sense of those at all, or whether they were sort of theoretical, like history or foundations of, or whether they might have been more practical in nature? This is how you do this, that, or the other.
You want to go
Well,
first?
yeah, I'm happy. It was a little both. It was a little practical and it was a little theoretical. But it worked well because first you have to know how people learn before you can know what they need to learn.
Uh-huh.
And that's what they did. So it was a very well organized program, I thought. And we got hands-on experience. We got to see. I don't know if I'm going to your next question.
No,
or not,
that's
but
fine.
We
It's
got
all
to see.
together.
We got to see excellent teachers. I
Mhm.
remember even in the freshman year going to Dumbarton Middle School. Well, it was
Oh.
junior high school then.
Uh-huh.
And there were teachers over there who would do lessons for us, practice lessons for us. And we even had an opportunity to actually get in front of the students and teach a little bit. So we had the hands-on kind of stuff. But then you got the theory about how kids learn and how to motivate kids and the organizational skills that you needed to have. You have to be very organized to be a teacher. That was always my weakness. I always had to struggle to stay organized. And I learned it at Towson, that you have to be organized. You learn very, very quickly that organization is the key. You walk into a classroom and you're not organized, and the children will eat you alive.
There you go.
They really will. They don't mean to, but they will.
How about you?
I would ditto that plus more,
Okay.
naturally. I was in elementary ed, and of course, starting out in Lytle and observing that was the first school, and that was awesome. then we moved out into many other schools, and we visited. We would have short periods, 3 times to visit a school there and another, and so on and so forth. My education there was just superb. The teachers and the instructors we had were marvelous. I could name them all. I loved them dearly. I was really thrilled with the placements that we had and what Towson arranged. I was privileged to have my first student teaching opportunity was in Baltimore County.
Mm-hmm.
And I was there for, I think, 3 months,
Uh-huh.
or no, 6 weeks.
Uh-huh.
And then my second was in Baltimore City.
Uh-huh.
Totally different environment, both wonderful experiences and all of that. The professors we had, many of them I just thought were wonderful. It was a great experience. The only problem I had thinking back on those days were not the lesson plans.
Mm-hmm.
We needed to have a lesson plan for the week. Plans, they had to be printed, so therefore they were done on a typewriter
Of course.
with the ever popular
Carbon paper.
carbon paper, of which I was not a great typist to be with. I was a 2-finger special. And there had to be 3 copies
Oh, my
because my
heavens.
supervising teacher from the college came every week, the principal, and then my own.
Uh-huh.
And that was a struggle. But, oh, did I learn. And so did those children, and it was a wonderful experience.
Now, what grades did you student teach in?
Actually, I hit primarily kindergarten
Uh-huh.
and 2nd and 3rd grade.
I see.
Mm-hmm.
And were the experiences in the city remarkably different, or at all different from your experience in the
yes.
county?
Remarkably different. It was actually much more, it was very rigid,
Uh-huh.
and it was a mixed children, Black,
Uh-huh.
African American, and of course white, and mixed neighborhood. The children were absolutely wonderful, and in those days, Towson required us
Uh-huh.
to dress professionally.
Mm-hmm.
And it was glorious to have all those suits and blouses and the little heeled shoes and the nylons. And when, I'll never forget, gym time, the children all got a big charge out of me taking off my shoes and putting on tennis shoes to go out to the play yard. And music, they brought in the piano, and if the music teacher was there. Otherwise, I got a record player, and we sang and danced around that room like it was just wonderful. And so I had a great experience with that. In the county,
Uh-huh.
they were more relaxed,
Uh-huh.
more hands-on.
Uh-huh.
The children were into everything. I actually bought the science kit that was a wooden kit with all the equipment and everything, because it intrigued me and I used it so much. I wanted to have it for my own when I taught
Sure.
school. And it was very, very different. They had more personnel to handle the different classes, art and music and all of that. They had teachers for that. Where it was not that so in the city.
Oh, so in the city, you were sort of maybe doing
Yeah,
those kinds of things?
Yes.
Wow.
So it was a good experience.
Uh-huh.
Both
And,
ways.
and different.
Mm-hmm.
And Ray, what did you get to do for student teaching?
I had 2 experiences, one in Baltimore City at Woodburn Junior High School,
Mm-hmm.
and then I had one in the county at Parkville Junior High School, and they were different. The city, you had a single subject, so I ended up with geography, so I taught geography, which was okay. But the thing was that my supervising teacher there loved all these gimmicky kind of things for introductions to the lesson, motivation. And the big one was the acrostic.
Okay.
And I wasn't any good at acrostics. and I spent more time figuring out acrostics than I did on the geography. I knew the geography. I didn't know acrostics from anything. But
That's
so anyhow,
funny.
that was a subject-oriented experience. I go to Baltimore County, and at that time, Baltimore County's teaching core. So
And
I
core
end up,
is?
core is English and social studies combined. So you teach whatever social studies it was. For me, it was United States history because it was a 7th grade class. So I was teaching that, but I was also teaching literature, spelling, and grammar.
And I'm sure
Which
you
I
never
was
thought
not
you would,
prepared.
right.
I was not prepared to teach grammar and lit and all of that in the core program. So that was a little bit of a difficult time. But the two cooperating teachers, one in Baltimore City and one in Baltimore County, they were really, really excellent people, but very demanding. And as Dolores mentioned, lesson plans. Both of my cooperating teachers wanted lesson plans for a week, and they wanted them a week in advance of the week you were teaching. So you had the lesson plans, and then after school, at the end of the day, then he or she, in the city it was a he, in the county it was a she, they would sit and they go over all your lesson plans for that coming week, and you would rewrite them, and then you would submit them again. But in addition to that, not only did you have lesson plans, but you had a unit plan. So you had a unit plan for the entire unit that you were responsible for while you were there.
Yes.
What kind of movies were you going to have? What kind of readings you were going to have? What other kinds of activities you're going to have? Were you going to order the 16 millimeter projector, which is what we had back in those days? When you were going to order the 16 millimeter projector, what films you were going to get from the library, all that stuff was in that unit plan. So you went over the unit plan and then those lesson plans. And then after each lesson, at the end of each day, after each lesson, you had a meeting with your cooperating teacher, and they told you what they thought. In no uncertain terms, they told you what they thought. But you learned a ton.
Of course.
And the thing is that the supervisors from Towson that went over there and worked with us, worked with them as well. So when you went back to the college, you got their feedback because they were listening to what the cooperating teachers were saying. So it was great. I worked my butt off. I really, really did on those unit plans and lesson plans. But they were. That's when I learned to be a teacher. Student teaching is where it's at. That's where it happens.
Also, I'd like to insert that at any time, and we needed help from one of our advisors from Towson, or we had a question or had a problem, they were Johnny on the spot. And if there was something that we were to do that didn't really go down smoothly with us, they always interceded.
They ran interference, yeah.
They
did.
were wonderful. They didn't put us out there, and they
desert
visited.
you.
They talked to the children, and what did Miss Manger say about that? And she said this, and it was wonderful.
Yeah.
So
They were. This was just a great. I don't know how it is now. I assume it's still great. I don't know, but they had it down. They knew how to prepare teachers to teach. They really, really did, and they had the best people at the college. I mean, those professors, they knew their business. They were tops in their field, whatever it was they were doing.
if I could say, from our class and everyone that I knew who went to Towson and graduated as a teacher, every single one of them did that for their career. Nobody changed careers or anything.
Interesting. Very interesting.
So,
Well, some of the guys I knew
Well, sure.
sold insurance, did
Uh-huh.
other things.
Yeah, and that's an
On the
issue
side,
down
right.
the road too,
Right.
is that, this is
But
not
most
a
did
field that
stay.
you're gonna make
everybody,
a lot of money in, so
Right.
that's sort of, and with some summertime, I think people really did do other things, or
Mhm.
additional things for the county in which
Right.
they worked or whatever. So you're at the end of your work here at Towson, and you're getting ready to go out and become teachers. When did you apply for jobs? When were you invited to become part of a school faculty? And were you confident at that point? Were you feeling pretty secure about your ability to go in there and get started?
Well, let me answer that first,
Okay.
because it kind of revolves around my decision to be in the Marine Corps.
Mm-hmm.
So when we graduated, I had 3 years obligation to the Marine Corps, minimum 3 years.
Yes.
And so we left and we went to Quantico.
Mm-hmm.
So for the first 3 years after I graduated, the USMC is what kept me busy.
Yes.
Dolores can tell you about her experiences, but that's what I did. But I would say that during that time, the state of Maryland was very generous, and they said,
yeah, we
okay,
ask.
Oh, sure.
we'll give you a waiver
Right.
until you're finished, and then when you come back, you only owed them 2 years
Right.
back then. So they said, when you come back, you'll fulfill your 2 years, and you're off the hook.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, great, whenever I get out, whenever that is,
Mhm.
I will do what I'm supposed to do, and I'll fulfill the 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what I did. When I left the Marine Corps, I interviewed for a job in Baltimore County at Loch Raven Junior High School. It
Uh-huh.
wasn't Loch Raven Academy like it is now.
Right.
Loch Raven Junior High School. They were all junior highs then,
Right.
before Elliot got the middle school stuff. But anyhow, it was Loch Raven Junior, and that was my first teaching experience was there.
Well, and you had the benefit of also having been in the Marines for 3 years, so combined with that, with your teacher preparation, I guess.
Oh, that was the worst part of it.
Oh, really?
Well, yeah, because
Tell
when
us
I was
about
in the
this.
Marine Corps and I told people to do something, they said, yes, sir, and they did it. And when I told 7th graders to do something, it was always a battle as to whether I never knew whether those little 7th grade kids were going to do it or not. They drove me crazy. I had a tough time with the 7th graders, but I had good people that helped me. I had a grade level chairman
Uh-huh.
at the time, and his name was Morris Trent,
Uh-huh.
and he helped me and kind of explained that 7th graders are different from every other creature on the planet. And so I learned about that, and then I had a absolutely wonderful Baltimore County supervisor, Luella Woodward, and remember I told you earlier about core. So I'm in
Yes.
Baltimore County, so I'm
Yes.
teaching core.
Yes.
I was great with the history and the geography and the political science and all that stuff. Grammar, couldn't do grammar. And Luella would come after school and she would say, let me show you how to teach grammar. Right?
Uh-huh.
And so I was successful mostly because of those two. And of course what I learned at Towson
Yeah.
greatly helped.
Mm-hmm.
But boy, those two folks, they helped me out a lot. Because I had trouble adjusting after
Of course.
that.
Yeah.
It wasn't all that easy.
No,
Wasn't a
not with those
smooth
little
transition.
13-year-old Marines.
No, they were not. So it was a difference.
It was, certainly. And how about you, Dolores?
Well, we moved to Quantico, Virginia, and I went to teach there.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
And there were positions available there?
Yes, it was, and it was, but for a short period of time because I got pregnant,
Uh-huh.
and that took care of that. But
Uh-huh.
it was a learning experience there that I have never ever forgotten. I was around up till Christmas, and we were doing all kinds of wonderful Christmas pictures and so on and so forth. There was a darling little boy there, and he could color just exquisitely, and his color combinations were just atrocious, and I could not figure out why he would do that. And there he was coloring away on Santa with a black crayon and doing the most precise coloring you ever want to say. And it just could not figure out why this child was coloring him black. He was colorblind.
Mm-hmm.
And it was my first experience. And
Yes.
it was traumatic for me.
Yes.
And how to work with him and so on and so forth. So that really stayed with me forever, and I began when I got pregnant and sick in the morning and so on and so forth. So I had to give up that position and just went on. We moved to Virginia, North Carolina then.
Yeah, Camp Lejeune.
Went
So-
down to Camp Lejeune.
Dolores, was the expectation, or was it written somewhere, that when you became pregnant you had to stop teaching, or was this just sort of your choice?
No, it was their
It was-
choice that it was
Probably some kind of policy
I
that after a
couldn't
certain
go.
number of months or something you had
Yes.
to.
Little
Yes.
children weren't supposed to see pregnant teachers.
Oh,
I don't
heavens
know what
no.
they thought.
But,
You
but
weren't
down
supposed
there,
to see
yes,
'em
that
first.
is true. So we moved to North Carolina and had children. And
And more children.
and more children. And finally, when my son, last one, Matthew, started kindergarten and my father oversaw him and so on and so forth, I went back and started out mainly as a substitute, but in Maryland. And,
So you're back in Maryland
back
after
in
North
Maryland.
Carolina?
Right.
Mhm. I did not teach in North Carolina.
Uh-huh.
And
Well, you taught your own children.
yes.
You had your
Oh, yes.
Yes, you had your own
My,
your own class.
yes. But there was a unique situation there when I came back at this one school. The vice principal devised a plan that I was a substitute, but what they did was he had me come and was working on this with the Baltimore County board, school board and over there, and they had me come every day to school as a substitute, whether they needed them or not, needed me or not. But if they needed me, fine. And I got a substitute's pay for that. But when I worked for a substitute all day, fine. When I didn't have to be a substitute, I was assigned to different classes and different groups of children to give special help and teaching to.
Interesting.
It was a wonderful program that
That's a great idea.
It is a great idea. Well, when Baltimore County Board of Ed got a hold of that didn't go down sweetly,
I see.
and they took that away.
Oh.
And so then that's when I started teaching then at another marvelous school, and that was
Chatsworth.
Chatsworth School.
Yes.
And oh my goodness, now I was interviewed by Nancy Grasmick, but she left at that point and there was another principal there. But the structure of that school, the teachers of that school, the children the needy children of that school.
And what was so Chatworth was a school that was put together, and the former state superintendent, Nancy Grasmick, was the principal, I guess, when it
Yes,
started.
she started,
And
yeah.
what was the intent at Chadwick? What kind of Chatsworth?
It was all problem children.
I see.
Everything was a problem class. There were some classes that were problem classes the entire year. Most of the problems classes, the children were identified. They stayed for a period of 6 weeks with all of the teachers and support that they had there. They had support from medical doctors, dentists, psychologists, psychiatrists, anything you can think of to work with that child and the family to help that child so he could be mainstreamed
I
in
see.
a normal school as soon as possible, or stay there for a year, 2 year, whatever was necessary. It was a constant moving situation. Beautiful, intriguing, rewarding. It was an experience that I just really was thrilled to death to do. I was in kindergarten, and I had the most wonderful time in kindergarten. I remember a situation. We were doing farm animals and pictures and stuffed animals, and we got to the point about a cow and how they get milk from a cow. And, well, how can you show a child and get down and he can milk a cow? And it bothered me extremely. So finally I decided that we took a child's ironing board and I set it up and put a soft blanket sort of over it. I had a cow's head and a tail, and underneath there I had a rubber glove. And we filled it with water, and the child actually milked the cow to find out how and why that udder was there with that animal, and they got the milk from it. So it was
That was fun.
It was things that we did, that you pull things out of the air that you did to help these children. It was, and you went home, you felt like you were flying. It was just, it was amazing. It was a wonderful school. And so I was there for quite a while, and then I got transferred out and went to several other schools in that Reisterstown corridor type area, and continued working.
Did you work as a classroom teacher when you left?
Yes.
And went other places?
And yes.
And what grades?
Mainly second, third, and fourth. And I...
Did you have a favorite grade?
No, not really.
Well, good.
I really
I
didn't.
think she liked the little kids better. I think she liked the little second graders.
I did like second graders. They were fun, but I experienced some wonderful people. A principal at I was at Padonia Elementary is another phenomenal school, just phenomenal. The principal that school, at the time that I was there, the entire area over there are apartments, and they were young physicians and young doctors going to Hopkins. So they were nationalities of all nations. The entire school was lined up with flags from every nation. And once a month, all the parents came in, and they cooked breakfast for the children in the classes, and they dressed in, and the children dressed. Ray came and cooked eggs. It was wonderful. And that was another terrific. I just had marvelous experiences.
It sounds like it.
So.
And what are you doing in the meantime?
Pretty much the same. I taught at Loch Raven Jr. for 9 years.
Okay.
And then, and I got out of the 7th grade.
You
Praise the
did.
Lord. And I ended up teaching 9th grade, which I love teaching.
And was 9th grade still this core?
Yes, still core.
So you're still doing grammar?
Yes, still doing grammar. And then, I don't know exactly what year it was, but one of the last years that I was there, Baltimore County decided to do away with core. And
Well, there you
then
go.
all of us had a choice. Which way do you want to go? You want to go the social studies route, or you want to go the English route? Well, I immediately thought, all those paragraphs to grade and all that. No, I'll go the social studies route. So I chose that. Then about a year after that, I applied for a high school position at Franklin High School, and I interviewed for that, and I then transferred from Loch Raven Junior High to Franklin Senior High School, and I taught history there. I taught 10th grade for 1 year, and then I taught U.S. history in the 11th grade forever. I taught 11th grade U.S. history for 19 years, I think. And I also taught, we had electives back then, and one of the electives I taught was psychology. And the funny story about the psychology, I had 3 of my 4 kids in class, actually.
Of your own children?
Of my own children in class, yeah.
At the same time?
No.
I was going to say, how could this be?
That wouldn't work.
I was going to say.
I had them at different times, but one of them was in my advanced placement American history class.
Really?
Well, actually, 2 of them were in my advanced placement American history class, and my oldest daughter was in my psychology class. And she said that was the most embarrassing moments of her life, because of course in psychology we would talk about sex a lot. And she said, it was just very uncomfortable to have my dad in the front of the room talking about that stuff. So I did the psychology and the advanced placement. For advanced placement, you had to, I don't know what they do now, but back then you had to take graduate level courses to teach advanced placement. So I went to Manhattan College and spent a summer there, and then I spent another summer at George Mason preparing for that, because it was again, I don't know how it is now, but it was a very, very challenging program. You really, really had to know your stuff. So it took me a good while, and I got into the debating at that time.
Well, tell us a little bit about that. So were you sort of the sponsor?
Yeah.
Or for the debate?
The coach.
The coach.
Actually, the coach.
The coach.
And it was called the Baltimore Forensic League. And it had schools from all over the greater Baltimore area, Anne Arundel County, Baltimore County, Howard County, Harford County, and so forth. And the parochial schools too. Loyola, Calvert Hall in particular. And we organized, we had these debates on the weekends. The kids were really dedicated because they gave up weekends to go to these debate tournaments, and they were all over the place. We traveled, I know what she's going to think. We traveled all over the East Coast. We went to debates at Harvard University, at the University of Pennsylvania, Wake Forest, I said University of Pennsylvania, and just constant travel on the weekends. So I wasn't home a lot of weekends during the debate season, which lasted from September to Memorial Day. And then we would have a national tournament somewhere, all over the country. We would go to different places, and there were thousands of kids from all over. We actually organized one of those tournaments in Baltimore City, and we had 9 hotels that we filled with students, coaches, and so on for those debate tournaments. Some of the best kids I've ever seen and heard, including the ones at Franklin. And we were a pretty successful team. I don't want to brag, but we were pretty good. And we won a couple championships and so forth. Not the national level, but on the state level. So it was
wonderful.
It was an excellent experience. But I want to go back. What she was talking about earlier about the ironing board, and a lot of that is still what you got at Towson. A lot of that is still, they taught us. I don't know that you can teach people to be creative, but you can teach people to want to be creative, I guess. I don't know, to think. I don't mean to be trite and say outside the box, but what she did's outside the box.
Certainly
right?
was.
And yet it worked. And I think that all goes back to Towson. I mean, we're big fans of Towson University, and especially big fans of that program. And even the debating, I mean, not that I had a Dr. Brewington as my public speaking teacher.
And that was
here
at Towson?
Towson
I was going to
University.
ask
And
you, how
that-
did you get
yeah.
trained to be a
And I
coach?
loved that. I had him, and then his wife also,
She was here.
Thelma Brewington was her
Uh-huh.
name, and she was here as well, and I had a course with her. But I just really enjoyed it, and he was a great guy, and he gave you the confidence to speak in front of people, and he gave you the tools that you needed, and I used a lot of those tools when I taught when I coached the debate team.
Successfully
Yeah,
used those
yeah,
tools.
absolutely. So, like I said, you know, it all goes. And also, she was talking earlier about taking off her shoes and putting on her tennis shoes. That's another thing that we got here at Towson. You learn to dress professionally and behave
Yeah.
professionally.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I mean, that was part of the curriculum, and it was stressed. And when you left here, you knew what was expected of you professionally, as a professional teacher, and you knew what kind of behavior was expected of you. You know, you didn't wear flip-flops to class and all of that kind of stuff. And that's all from here. And so I don't know what they're doing now, but I hope they're doing at least some of that. I know times have changed, but
They are.
professional
It's-
demeanor
Yes,
is still important.
it is.
I think it is.
Education has been very important to us, and he left out one thing that he did also at Franklin High School. In the evenings, he had adult education at Franklin High School and was the principal of that. So there were adults who came to Franklin High School in the evening and took all kinds of courses and classes that he was able to set up and get teachers to come in and teach them.
Wow. So would this be adult basic ed, or would this be?
Everything. Yeah. ESOL,
GED?
basic
Oh,
ed,
ESOL.
GED,
Right.
and then aerobics, knitting, cake decorating,
Why not?
shorthand back then.
Uh-huh.
We
Oh,
taught
I learned-
shorthand, typing,
Right, and automobile.
all that stuff.
Oh, yeah, I tuned up my own car. It was wonderful.
There you go.
Points in the car, can you believe it?
You didn't get to
Back in the
install
day when cars had
telephones,
points.
but
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
But, yeah, he just had that knack of drawing and teaching. Okay.
God, those
So,
were the days.
Those were the days.
well, and you just thought, the sky's the limit. We can do this. Why
Yes.
not?
Yes.
Let's give it a try.
Yeah, I can honestly say, and Dolores as well, it never occurred to us that we couldn't do anything. And I think this is my commercial message to any would-be teachers that are going to see this thing, and that
Okay.
is, don't be apologetic about being a teacher. There are more skills required and necessary to be an effective teacher than just about anything else you do. If you can teach, you can do just about any doggone thing you want. And I am a firm believer in that. And when you hear people, well, I did this and I did that, and I think, I can do that.
Mhm.
I could do that.
Mhm.
It's not that hard. Teaching's hard.
Teaching is
A
hard.
lot of the other stuff
Yes,
isn't
it is.
that people do.
Uh-huh.
Teaching is hard. It's hard work. It's hard on you physically. It's hard on you mentally, and it's hard on you emotionally.
Uh-huh.
If you can do it, you can do just about anything you want with your life. I really believe that.
Dolores, what would you say? What advice would you give individuals who would be thinking about going into teaching?
I would say absolutely go for it and go to Towson University.
Hoorah!
I just feel, there are 5 of us in our family who graduated from Towson. And we all think it's wonderful. My granddaughter graduated from Towson, is working with children. What greater glory is there than to work with children?
Mhm.
And I feel very strongly about it. Any way I can help, I would.
What things have we forgotten
I don't
that
know.
you, yeah, that, what's on your sheet that we didn't talk about?
Yeah.
I would, on the side, say, I wrote back here, the professors that we had from Towson were the most wonderful people. I absolutely, I hated history with a passion, as you well know.
Uh-huh,
But with them, I learned.
uh-huh.
Pearl Blood taught geography. The little stream out there was the Mississippi River or whatever it was.
Chesapeake Bay.
The Chesapeake Bay, whatever she needed. The professors were so wonderful. I just loved them all, every single one. I'm sure they're gone, passed to a greater glory, but
Maybe.
they are all remembered, let me tell you. Dr. I lost it.
President?
Earl Hawkins?
Earl Hawkins.
Uh-huh.
Like, oh my, his wife and he greeting the students every year, hat, gloves, dressed up tea. That way, we were adults when we walked in there. We weren't kids. That was important.
It was.
That was very important.
Maybe a first lesson in how you should dress professionally.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And you probably had to write a note accepting their invitation for tea, so.
Thank you, note.
Mhm,
Afterwards. Yes,
mhm.
ma'am.
But they did all the right things. What can I say?
Pearl Blood reminds me, we went to Calvert Cliffs with her. And we
Really?
studied, and to this day, there was just an article in the paper the other day about the menhaden fish population, and I know all about that because of Pearl Blood, because we studied what an intricate part of the whole food chain the menhaden fish is, and I mean we did that kind of stuff, and they were just excellent at those kind of experiences. The other, and they were student kind of people. You'd be in the what was then the student center, and you'd be sitting around and playing cards, and one of the profs would come over and play cards with you, especially if you were playing bridge. Hey,
Yeah.
sit down and play a game of cards
That's
with
where
you.
we learned to play bridge.
Yeah, they enjoyed that kind of stuff, and they were very much into those kind of experiences. We got invited over to one of the his name escapes me. Maybe I should have written something down. We were invited over to this one professor's house. He had written a reader, and the star of the reader was Nippy, and it was for little kids. And we were invited over to his house when the book was published, and he invited us over. And we all went over there and had a grand old time celebrating, and we sang a song about Nippy, N-I-P-P-I, spells Nippy, and just those kind of, you don't forget that kind of
No,
stuff.
of course not.
That's stuff that stays with you, and the friends that we made there, and of course I met my wife there. I do have a story about meeting my wife there. After we
Okay.
graduated, the following week we got married, and we went
A
on
week
honeymoon.
later.
A week later. 11th, graduated on 11th, June 11th. We were married on June 18th, and we went away to the Poconos for our vacation, for our anniversary. Excuse me, for our honeymoon. And we got there, and there were 3 other couples from Towson who were there, and we didn't know it in advance.
Oh, that's funny.
So we kind of hung out together the whole time. But it was a big surprise. We didn't know that they were there.
And each one of them
Yeah.
did not know the other one was
Right.
coming.
Yeah,
It was
that was
unbelievable.
so that was a lot of fun too. So
I want to mention the dorm mothers.
Okay.
We had the most wonderful dorm mothers you could possibly imagine. Ours most of the time was Mrs. Tillman. God love her, she was wonderful. And when the show with the Miss America show. Well, we were supposed to have lights out and all of that, but we all got in Mrs. Dillman's room and watched the
Miss
show.
America.
And we tiptoed back. And so that nobody was disturbed. Well, there wasn't anybody else on the hall or whatever. They were wonderful, our dorm mothers. When there was a problem, from a headache, boyfriend, whatever, she was there. She took care. Oh my gosh, she was wonderful. They were just marvelous people. I can't, say enough about them. The doctor and the nurse were...
Nurse Ward.
Nurse Ward.
I think she was in the Army before she was tough. You really had to be sick to see Nurse Ward.
They were wonderful, absolutely wonderful, and at all times I to get a shot. I had an experience because Ray and I were going to go somewhere. I had a little knitting box. I was famous for knitting argyle socks and beer mug socks, and with the 4 needles, and they were in the car, and I threw it in the car, and we were going to go up to Pierce's or whatever, and I sat on a needle, and it went in quite far on my buttocks.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes.
And so we went to Nurse Ward.
Unique
Nurse
injury.
And
She hadn't seen
said,
that
"Why,"
before.
Nope.
she was, "Why are you here?" And I sat on a knitting needle. She said, "You did what?" I showed, "Oh my God," she said. "Doctor, come out here immediately." It was one of those big. Well, he didn't know what to do with it either. How to get it in or out. And they stood there, and anyway, she decided I needed a tetanus shot first, and then they ripped
Good
it out.
idea.
And
Ooh.
it wasn't a problem. But anyway, every time she saw me after that, she said, "You're not knitting, are you?" But I was taken care of, but it was wonderful. It was a wonderful experience.
When she was talking about the dorms and the curfews. And it was curfew was, I think, 10 o'clock
10
during
o'clock.
the week and midnight on the weekend. And you had the girls.
Only Saturday
the
night.
boys did not have a curfew. The girls had a curfew. Yeah. Anyhow, so we would pull up next to, what was it, Pretty
I
Man?
said Newell Hall.
Newell? Newell Hall. And there was a road there.
Right. Still
And
is.
So we would all park on the road and we would
Neck.
neck. And then the clock would start chiming. And the
10
key
o'clock.
was to get them in the dormitory,
Before
through
the
the door,
And
before
through
the
Our
last
passing.
chime on the clock. And then Mrs. Tillman was there. And if you went to pick them up, you went to the lobby, and then there was an announcement. There's a man on the floor. And then they would call down, "Miss Manger, you have a guest. Would you please come down to the lobby, foyer, whatever they call it." And that's when they made. But nobody ever got past
Past
the
the
lobby.
first
Nobody
floor.
ever got past Miss Tillman either.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, this has been great fun. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
I hope we did.
Yeah.
For us. Oh,
We had-
heavens,
We had a
no.
good time here.
We did.
We really did.
had a
It sounds
wonderful-
like it. Well, thank you so much. This certainly will add immeasurably to our story collectively.
Well,
Well, thank you for having
thank
us.
you.
It was a pleasure.
It was a
Oh,
pleasure.
Our pleasure.
Yeah.
Thanks.